Have you ever wondered why Chinese electric vehicles are flooding the European market? With sleek designs, advanced features, and surprisingly affordable prices, these EVs seem too good to be true. But what if there's more to the story than meets the eye? The European Union certainly thinks so, and they're not taking it lying down because Europe's claims about Chinese EV subsidies are about to turn your understanding of the electric car market upside down. So let's find out what's happening. Let's start by setting the scene. For years, China has been dominating the global electric vehicle market. In 2023 alone, they captured over half of all EV sales worldwide. But it's not just about quantity. Chinese EVs are making waves for their quality and affordability too. Brands like BYD, Geely, and SAIC are no longer just budget options. They're giving established European automakers a run for their money. But here's where things get interesting. On June 12, 2024, the European Commission dropped a bombshell. They announced provisional penalty tariffs ranging from 17.4% to 38.1% on electric vehicles imported from China. Now you might think, wait a minute, isn't Europe all about free trade? Well, yes and no. The EU claims these tariffs are necessary to counter what they call unfair subsidies from the Chinese government. So, what exactly are these subsidies, and why is Europe so worked up about them? To understand this, we need to take a trip down memory lane. Back in 2009, China decided to go all in on electric vehicles. They saw it as a way to leapfrog the competition in the auto industry, reduce their dependence on oil imports, and tackle their notorious air pollution problems. It was a classic case of killing three birds with one stone. To kickstart this EV revolution, the Chinese government unleashed a tidal wave of support for the industry. This included everything from research and development funding to tax breaks for consumers. However, the real game changers were the direct subsidies to EV manufacturers and massive investments in charging infrastructure. According to research from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, from 2009 to 2023, Chinese government support for the EV sector totaled a staggering $230.9 billion. In the early years, from 2009 to 2017, the government was spending about $6.74 billion annually on EV support. But then, things really kicked into high gear. By 2021, that yearly spending had more than tripled. We are discussing buyer rebates, sales tax exemptions, infrastructure funding, R&D programs, and government procurement of EVs. Those figures might actually be on the conservative side. They don't include things like low-cost land, electricity, and credit from which many Chinese EV makers benefit. And let's not forget about local government support. Remember NIO? In 2020, they got a $705 million injection from the Hefei municipal government in exchange for a stake in the company. The central government reduced the buyer's rebate in 2022 and eliminated it entirely in 2023. But here's the catch. Even as some subsidies are being phased out, others are ramping up. Take CATL, China's battery behemoth. Their government subsidies skyrocketed from $76.7 million in 2018 to $809.2 million in 2023. So, what does all this mean for the European EV market? Well, it's creating what some are calling an uneven playing field. Chinese EVs are entering the European market at prices that European automakers can't match. And it's not just about the price. These vehicles are increasingly competitive in terms of quality and features too. The European Commission argues that this flood of subsidized Chinese EVs is threatening the very existence of Europe's domestic EV industry. They claim it's not fair competition, but rather the result of years of massive state support that has artificially lowered the prices of Chinese EVs. But here's where things get complicated. China isn't taking these accusations lying down. They argue that their EVs are competitive because of their natural advantages and the high quality of their products. They point out that their subsidies as a percentage of total sales have actually declined substantially, from over 40% in the early years to only 11.4% in 2023. Now, let's shift gears and closely examine the European Commission's investigation. On October 4, 2023, the Commission formally initiated what they call an ex officio anti-subsidy investigation on imports of battery electric vehicles for passengers originating in China. Basically, they're looking into whether Chinese EVs are benefiting from unfair government support. This investigation isn't just a quick peek under the hood. It's a comprehensive 13-month process that could reshape the European EV market. The Commission has already reached some preliminary conclusions, and they are not pulling any punches. They have provisionally concluded that the battery electric vehicle value chain in China is benefiting from unfair subsidization. They claim this isn't just giving Chinese companies an edge, it's actually causing a threat of economic injury to EU electric vehicle producers. In other words, they're saying the future of Europe's own EV industry is at stake. Now you might wonder, what exactly do these provisional tariffs look like? Well, the Commission has set different rates for different companies. BYD, China's EV powerhouse, is looking at a 17.4% tariff. Geely, another major player, is facing a 20% hit. And SAIC, they're staring down the barrel of a 38.1% tariff. Other Chinese EV producers who cooperated with the investigation but weren't specifically sampled would face a 21% tariff. And those who didn't play ball with the investigation, they're looking at the maximum 38.1% rate. The Commission isn't just slapping these tariffs and calling it a day. They've reached out to Chinese authorities to discuss these findings and are exploring possible ways to resolve the issues in a manner compatible with World Trade Organization, WTO, rules. And things could get ugly indeed. If these discussions don't lead to an effective solution, those provisional countervailing duties would kick in from July 4th, 2024. That's right, just in time for Independence Day in the US, though I doubt there will be much celebrating in Beijing or Brussels. Other countries are also doing a similar thing. Just a month before the EU's announcement, the United States quadrupled its tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles to 100%. They doubled down on their existing tariffs, effectively slamming the door shut on Chinese EV imports. The Chinese Foreign Ministry has called the EU's anti-subsidy investigation a typical case of protectionism. They warn that these measures could disrupt automobile supply chains and ultimately hurt Europe's interests. But it's not just China that's concerned. Some European automakers are worried too. Companies like BMW, which sells in Chinese markets, saw their shares drop when the EU announced its plans. There's fear of Chinese retaliation, which could hurt European companies operating in China. And it's not just about cars. The EU is also investigating Chinese imports of wind turbines and solar panels. It's part of a broader push to protect European industries from what they see as unfair competition. This broader push reflects growing concerns within the EU about maintaining a level playing field for its industries. The European Commission's investigation into Chinese subsidies for electric vehicles is just one piece of a larger strategy aimed at addressing what many in Europe perceive as unfair trade practices by China. The stakes are high for both sides. For China, the EU is a crucial market for its burgeoning electric vehicle industry, which has been heavily supported by state subsidies. Losing access to this market or facing significantly higher tariffs could slow the growth of Chinese EV makers and impact China's overall economic plans. For Europe, imposing tariffs and countermeasures is a double-edged sword. While it aims to protect domestic industries, there is a risk of escalating trade tensions that could harm European companies reliant on the Chinese market. The automotive industry is particularly vulnerable. European manufacturers, already grappling with the transition to electric vehicles, could face supply chain disruptions and increased costs. Companies like Volkswagen, Daimler, and BMW, which have significant operations and sales in China, are closely watching the developments. Any retaliatory measures from China could directly impact their profitability and market share. Additionally, the broader economic relationship between the EU and China could be strained. Trade in other sectors, such as technology and consumer goods, might also come under pressure if the situation escalates. The EU's move is part of a larger trend of Western countries reevaluating their trade relationships with China. The United States, for instance, has taken a more aggressive stance, not just in the automotive sector, but across various industries, citing national security and economic concerns. So, what do you think about this electric showdown between Europe and China? Are the EU's proposed tariffs justified? Or is this just protectionism in disguise? And how do you think this will affect the future of EVs? Share your thoughts in the comments section, like, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you next.